All right, and welcome to Hat Trick Sports Talk, our weekly Friday show. As always, I am joined by Brandon and Shane. Say hi, guys.
Hey, what's happening?
What up?
What up? All right, Brandon, we're going to have you have the floor because you just brought this to our attention as something that we wanted to discuss. With Skip Bayless on his comments on Dak Prescott, you have the full story, so I'll let you have the floor to begin today.
Yeah, so I think it was a week or so ago that Dak Prescott went on. I forget what show it was, but he went on a sports show. Basically, he was um, talking about how his brother committed suicide back in April, and how he's been dealing with depression since then, and basically talking about his mental health issues and how just a combination of how like being in charge of being the quarterback for arguably America's team, and being in the spotlight all the time, um, leads to mental health issues that a lot of quarterbacks don't really talk about, and a lot of NFL players don't talk about, but also just in general talking about the main story being about how he had depression. He got depression from his brother's suicide.
Mm-hmm.
And then you have Skip Bayless yesterday, who, for those who don't know, Skip Bayless is basically a shock jock of sports talk, TV, television show, on Undisputed.
Fox Sports
Yeah,
FS1
he
now.
used to be part of First Take with Stephen A. Smith. Basically, he's one of those. He's not even a sports reporter. He's a hot take artist.
Pretty much, yeah. That'd be the best
So
way to put it.
basically, yeah, he said that depression is a sign of weakness, which I don't know about you guys, but I will not stand for that. I will
No.
not stand for people in the media and in public or anybody in general saying that depression is a sign of weakness. Depression is not a sign of weakness. In fact, I would say people who are able to live their lives with depression, going about their lives and making the most of things and being able to be successful are stronger than people who don't. Because the fact is, depression is not something that people can choose to have or not. Depression
Mm-hmm.
is something that is dealt with, and to me it's the same sort of argument of people who say, I find it on the same level of disgusting as people who say, oh, it's selfish of people who kill themselves because they couldn't handle it anymore. That is not okay. It's not okay for people in society to have this sort of like this idea that mental health and people who choose to deal with it in their own way is either selfish or weak, and I won't stand for it. And I think all of us here at Hat Trick Sports Talk feel the same way. I'll give you guys the floor.
For me, I'll speak on my experience some. If you are close to me, you've seen it. I mean, for on my end, with depression, anxiety, I'm not going to go too deep into my experience necessarily, but you've seen it. I mean, it's something that I still deal with every day. It's really difficult, and for someone to say that it's a sign of weakness is really frustrating for me, because I think my depression in particular, in working towards it every day, it's been a really incredible experience, because it's kind of gotten me to where I am to some degree, in the sense that you'll learn a lot about, in coping with depression, you learn a lot about yourself, and you learn a lot about what you truly care about, friends and family. And the people who are close to me, you know who you are if you're listening to this. But I mean, the reality is, I think in that process, you're learning so much about yourself at the end of the day, and you're learning on how to cope with it through different methods, or sometimes you just kind of go through every day feeling down. And then when you do, you take time away, you step back, and you start to understand, like, okay, what is the meaning of everything that you're doing, and what are the most important things, right? And again, for someone to say it's a sign of weakness is really frustrating, because as as with Dak's brother, I mean, suicide is so difficult. It's one of these things where, I mean, there are people where, I mean, you have depression and you have those thoughts. Sometimes it might be minimal, but you do. It's kind of sometimes part of the process, even if it's a very small thing. But suicide is not something to, it's tough for everybody, because I think, and that's why I think there's always something for me that I always remember, okay, like what are the important things in life, but also how are you being important to others too? And what impact can you make? And when you're thinking about suicide or all these things, those are some of the things that always come to mind for me personally through my experience. But in general, seeing what Skip said is really painful because of someone who's dealt with depression, and it still deals with it every day. I think it's just one of these things that's just so gut-wrenching because I think, as you said, Brandon, before we came on, I mean, everyone deals with it at some point in their lives. Everyone deals with anxiety or goes through different things. And to say that it's a sign of weakness is really frustrating, because I'm sure even someone like Skip has gone through it as well. Shane, you can go ahead.
Yeah, I mean, it's something that, I think you pretty much hit it on the head there. It's just, we all, I mean, it's a regular human emotion. I think as humans, we kind of try and, avoid it, if that makes sense, or like look at it and go, oh no, like we're afraid of it. Like, no, I don't have that. But I mean, you look at a guy like Dak Prescott. I mean, I know a few people personally who I've lost to suicide, unfortunately, and it's it's not easy. It's weird. It's really weird. I mean, you just you're left with all these questions like why, why did they do it, or sitting there thinking like, what could I have done to prevent it, and lots of guilt that kind of comes with it.
Mm-hmm.
It gets better with time, but yeah, I mean, with him, losing your brother, and I think a few years ago his mom passed away as well. So I mean, looking at all that stuff, for him to say, yeah, I'm kind of depressed. I mean, that's not really a surprise. I mean, it's unfortunate, obviously, but I mean, it's kind of, it's understandable considering what he's gone through, and I mean, hopefully, the best thing is just that he finds help and figures out how to kind of how do I explain it? It just not feeling better about himself,
mm-hmm. Yeah,
his life,
and
be able to find peace.
I'd just say, and like, I'm sure that someone like Dak Prescott has the benefit of a locker room to support him.
mm-hmm.
And I would just say, before we move on, I would say the good news in terms of our field of work, or what we do in terms of the media, is most of the media, from what I could see, came out chastising Skip, basically saying like, this isn't okay. You can't, like, this is not the right form of action. I don't know what Shannon Sharp's take on it was, because I haven't seen the clip. I've just read articles and whatnot and read what he said. But I think, yeah, it's really, it's sad to me when you hear people who are part of the industry that we all feel like we want to be part of in some way,
Mm-hmm. And let me just say this to conclude. This started with one guy, Kevin Love of the Cleveland Cavaliers, and and in reading his experience. I know Jaylen Brown of the Celtics also talked about his experience with depression. Kevin Love even had an anxiety attack on the court. And, seeing that a couple years ago, also continuously, as we've seen throughout this year, has really opened our eyes to these athletes as people. But it's really amazing to see how these athletes, we think of them sometimes as on this sort of pedestal or whatever. But it's amazing to see these athletes being open about their emotions and what they're going through, especially something like mental health, where it's not talked about as much in our society. And it's not, talking about mental health just unfortunately isn't as valued as it should be. I'm someone who loves talking about mental health as someone who's dealt with it. And to see guys like Dak, Kevin Love, Jaylen Brown, and I'm sure many, many more speak openly about it, says something about how mental health in this country is becoming something that people are more open to speak on. And I think that's one of the most important things to take away from this as well.
Definitely.
All right, let's move on to the rest of our outline. We are going, of course, to the NBA. Honestly, there's one big game today, but we'll go through the rest of the bracket as well. The Lakers last night with a pretty interesting win. It is interesting for me looking at the Lakers right now in this series against the Rockets, where Westbrook has seemed to be hitting a lot more threes than he should. I think he was 3 for 8 last night, and then seeing guys on the Lakers side, guys like Rondo, guys like Caruso, kind of help the scoring load where it's not just AD and LeBron. Brandon, I'll start with you. What are your thoughts on the Lakers and their role players as a unit really making a difference in this series?
It's sort of strange for me because we all saw how much they struggled against Portland. Because you could argue that even though it was like a blowout on paper, for those who watched the games, they were fairly competitive. And none of these players really stepped up in that series. And I would say that this is what they're going to have to do if they're going to have a chance, the Lakers, if they're going to have a chance of winning it all. They got to have the guys coming off the bench being able to step up and put up the points. But I mean, as I harped on in the Portland series, the guys who need to step up are stepping up. Like LeBron and AD, I mean, they're both, for the most part. Houston just also doesn't seem entirely there.
Yeah.
But
Before we get to Houston, Shane, with the Lakers having Rondo back, right? The whole playoff Rondo kind of mantra has definitely showed himself. Not as much in the last game, but the game before that. What does Rondo bring to the table as, a facilitating point guard for this team, especially in the playoffs?
Yeah, well, I mean, I think it's just that really more of that sense of completion as a team, because, you got AD, LeBron, who are consistently putting up, 20, 30 points. And, that's great and all. But then to have more people like Rondo, Caruso, he's really stepped up. Green, Caldwell, having all these guys who can put in decent performances each night, that's, I think, what is kind of giving them the edge over a team like, Houston, who, while they do have, Westbrook, Harden, and, even guys like Jordan, who are all playing really well. I mean, if you look at Houston as a team, defensively, they don't do particularly well. So, if you can have more guys all throughout the floor making more offense than them, then I think that's big key to winning. It was kind of the same thing in the Portland series for me, where they were a team that had a couple good shooters in Lillard and Melo, obviously, but then defensively there wasn't really much going on. So then now that they have Rondo back, I mean, I think that just like further enforces this idea that, oh yeah, okay, LA has a decent chance against a team like Houston. You know what I mean?
Mm-hmm.
Um,
And then
but-
with Westbrook as well, right? I mean, what are
Yeah.
your thoughts on him kind of reverting back to his old kind of OKC days, shooting more threes, not as much driving to the lane? Do you think that's kind of affected Houston so far in the last few games of this series?
A little bit, I would say. He's definitely. I mean, if you look at the stat line, Westbrook, Harden, and Gordon are getting a lot of points, but no one else really is. And I think part of that is because overstarted Westbrook is having more playing time, but also just kind of that, like you said, that OKC style, like kind of ball hog type of style of play. Because, I mean, yeah, he's attempting more threes, but I mean, I think he was like, what, 3 for 9?
He was Westbrook was 3 for 8 last night
3 for 8, okay.
from what I saw.
Yeah. And I don't know. I mean, it's I would think that with a team like LA, because to me these two teams are pretty similar in a lot of ways.
Mhm.
Houston's because they both have like their 2 stars and then a bunch of decent supporters, but nothing too amazing, if you know what I mean.
Mm-hmm.
And so the thing is, though, I mean, they're the 2 stars in this Houston team. Westbrook and Harden are great, but they're not LeBron and AD. You know what I mean?
Mm-hmm.
And so I think you really have to, for a team like Houston, you really got to spread the ball around. Get PJ Tucker really involved, Covington, whatever. But that just doesn't seem like the case, because I mean, they only lost by 10 points. So
I mean, they had to come back. They were down by 20 some, and then they came back.
Well, yeah, but I mean, when you consider the fact that they only lost by 10 points. It's not like they were totally out of the game.
Mm-hmm.
So, I mean, I think if they had a better game plan, they would have a better shot.
Mm-hmm.
But I don't know what to expect.
And then, Brandon, I'll finish off this series with you as well, asking you that same question about Westbrook and the 3-point shooting that he's seemed to be on right now.
Yeah. Westbrook, he's shooting well, but do we really expect it to stay around? Like, he just seems to be such a kind of a hot and cold shooter,
Yeah.
But yeah.
Mostly cold from behind the line, and I think for me that was kind of the big key, especially during the weekend as well. And then we go to the other LA team. Does this series look over for both of you, LA and Denver, at this point? Because it does for me. What went wrong with Denver here after that series against Utah?
I mean, the series against Utah was pretty rough. I mean, it was not a clean series at all. So, like, I did not expect anything out of Denver,
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Were you expecting more out of Denver, Shane, in this series, or this is about where you expected them to be at this point?
I mean, I didn't even, as the Utah series was going on, I didn't even think they were going to win. But here we are. Yeah, I mean, it's clear that LA is just the far better team. I mean, they have, with the exception of turnovers and some defensive stats, I think Denver is doing a bit better.
Mm-hmm.
But I mean, LA just has such a complete roster. You know what I mean? And their bench is pretty deep as well.
Well, they have a complete roster when they're playing like fully, you know.
Yeah,
Oh, yeah.
and
Like
they're playing motivated too.
It just seems like they choose when they want to play and when they don't. You know?
I think that's a very important point because that's sort of what this team feels like, and that's where I think the Lakers Clippers series will be interesting. It's like, are they actually going to like hit the gas pedal finally, right? Because it feels like they're kind of just touching the gas pedal, right? And there are times where during the season, like Christmas Day against the Lakers, they were just kind of touching the gas pedal throughout the restart. They're just kind of touching it, and maybe you play the Lakers in a 7-game series, that gas pedal kind of fully turns on. But they're not acting like a championship team right now.
I guess I could argue that if Denver was to win tonight, I think.
Yeah, tonight they're playing at 3:30 tonight.
I guess I could argue if Denver was to win tonight, maybe it could be a series. But I don't know. It's a strange series to me.
Yeah. That one game where Denver did pick up the win, I think. Well, actually, I'm not even sure, but there was one game over the weekend where they did shoot the ball at a pretty high percentage, right? So, but they don't normally do that. So that's kind of a big thing in this series as well. But yeah, I think we're all pretty much in agreement that the series is pretty much over at this point.
Yeah.
And then Brandon, I'll have you have the floor with your Toronto Raptors in what was an absolute classic 2-overtime game. How similar is Boston and Toronto to you? Does this make sense that this goes to a Game 7 tonight?
Yeah. So I'll say this. I think weirdly, we've had this conversation before, Robert. I think we both agree that Boston and Toronto are very similar teams. I think I believe though that Boston. I think if this was a series where they were playing in their home courts with their home fans, shots might have fallen different ways, but that's a conversation for another time. One thing that's been interesting about this series is that, as we've talked about, Boston has had the shot gods on their side, like with shots falling. At least in all the games that they've won, they've had all their threes hitting, and Toronto has had like none of their threes hitting.
Mm-hmm.
And it seems, and I've said from the beginning that Toronto is good at adjusting to who they're playing, and that's what Toronto has done. They've adjusted after game one. After the first two games, they kind of figured out the play stuff, what Boston was doing, and they got a little bit more aggressive, and they went to the hoop more, which is what I've been saying they need to do, because they're not really a three-point shooting team. And then it kind of, there were a couple games that, as in a playoff series is going to happen, it got very close, came down to the wire. And I think it's an interesting duel because you have the young renegade team of Boston, and you have the playoff wizened team of Toronto, who the reason they've made it to Game 7 is because, as Charles Barkley said after Game 3 when he was asked, do you believe that Toronto will make it to Game 7? He said yes, and as Kenny the Jet Smith said, if Toronto's going to win this series, it's going to be based upon experience. And I believe that Toronto has gotten to Game 7 just off of the ability to grind it out, have the experience in those really in those clutch times that those situations of being nervous, not having those nerves, being able to hit those threes, hit the free throws. That is one thing Toronto has been very good in the games that they have won. They've been able to get to the line and they've hit very consistently on their free throws, and that's just a part of their game. And I think honestly I couldn't tell you who's going to win tonight because it could be a blowout. It could Boston could run away with it. Toronto could maybe run away with it. I don't think they would run away with it. Or it could be extremely close. I personally think it's going to be extremely close, and personally, I think Boston should not want it to be extremely close because if it's an extremely close game, I think Toronto finds a way to win it, because of their experience in the tight clutch playoff situations. But I don't know.
Yeah. And then, Shane, what are your thoughts on Game 7 tonight? And then looking ahead for these two teams in Miami, what are your expectations for both of these teams against Miami when we get there? But first, start with the game tonight.
Yeah, I'm kind of with Brennan on the game tonight. I mean, I really don't know what to expect. I mean, it's these. This is such a fun matchup to me because, like I've talked about before, I think Boston is probably the best offensive team and Toronto is the best defensive team that we have in the bubble. And so, seeing them go head to head like this is pretty fun. And I think it's, we know that those are both of their strengths. I think what's going to make the difference is can Toronto offensively, rise above, if you will. They have, Lowry, Van Vliet, Powell, they all have been playing really well offensively. And, I think if they can just get guys like Siakam, who else? I'm blanking.
I mean, here's the deal with Siakam as well, and this is something Brandon and I have had constant conversations about. He's not even been present in these games.
Right.
If he plays well tonight, Toronto wins this game for sure.
Yes.
Yeah.
Especially
in the games, and to follow that up, in the games that Toronto has won, he's been putting up double digits. When he's there, they win. When he's not, and part of that is when he goes when he's aggressive and going to the hoop. For some reason, he's been trying to shoot threes and it just doesn't work.
That's never really been his game either way.
He was I think he was 0 for 5 for threes.
Yeah.
And then,
he's got to get in the paint, I think. But
yeah. And then, Shane, I'll have you finish off both of these teams against Miami. What are your expectations, whoever it is?
Dang. That would be that's going to be an interesting series, regardless of who it is, because I think Miami is a dangerous team, and I was not, I was not expecting them to be this good. You know what I mean?
Mm-hmm.
Because you look at Milwaukee, and I think a lot of people, myself included, thought that there was a good chance that they would get to the NBA Finals, and clearly that has not been the case. And so, I think, the fact that Miami beat them, they didn't beat them. They beat them in 5, right?
Yeah. Miami won in 5. Yes, that's right.
Yeah. That's kind of crazy, really, if you think about it. Miami is a very young team, and I think that kind of works in their favor in a way because they're just very energetic. but they have. I mean, of course, like their star player is Jimmy Butler, but they've got. I mean, they got Bam, Crowder. They have so many guys, even on the bench.
Right, Goran Dragic especially. I mean, we're talking about
Right.
Duncan Robinson every week now. I've been mentioning him pretty much on every podcast. So
Yeah, I mean, they have so many guys who are effective scorers. They really have such great ball movement. They get the ball around to everybody, and it's and everybody gets involved. Um, and they just, they're very consistent. I think they really know kind of what they are.
mm-hmm.
And so, I mean, I don't. It's hard to predict how the series will turn out because, I thought that Miami would be one way in the playoffs, and they've been kind of the opposite because I wasn't expecting them to be this good. So I don't know. I think it'll be a competitive series regardless of who it is. I think Toronto would probably have a better chance against them. It would. I think if it was Toronto, it would be a very tight, low scoring matchup. Whereas if it were Boston, I think it would be just like a fireworks show with lots of scoring just because of the way that those teams are. So, it'll be interesting. I mean, we'll find out tonight who they're going to play. But regardless, I think it'll be fun.
Yeah, I really like Miami moving forward for sure. Whoever it is, it's going to be really interesting for sure.
Yeah.
And then let's move on to week one. Brandon and I, of course, had a long, half an hour post show last night on Chiefs Texans. Shane, I'll have you open up with your thoughts on that game before we go through the rest of the Sunday slate.
Well, that game told me a lot of things. For starters,
I think he froze.
Oh, did he?
Yeah.
the Chiefs.
There we go.
There we go.
He froze a bit. Go ahead.
But Brennan posed this question in our group chat. He said, "Are the Chiefs this good, or are the Texans this bad?" And
fair question.
I think it's a bit of both, to be honest. I mean, Houston got a little better towards the end, but I mean, I don't think that they're going to be a fantastic team this year, which is unfortunate, but oh well, it's just the way things happen. And I mean, Clyde Edwards-Helaire blew me away. I mean, yeah, that defense was not amazing, but because they were obviously anticipating more of a pass game, and then they got this great run game too, which, I mean, that says a lot about this team because now they have two very effective means of attack on offense, and because he's obviously transitioning well to the NFL. It looks like he had 120 yards or something, which is crazy for a rookie debut. So yeah, I'm pretty high on the Chiefs this year. I think that just kind of reassured the fact that this team is ready to win now, and they're still in it for the time being.
Mm-hmm. And looking forward, of course, to the Sunday slate. Brandon, I'll start with you. What is a 10 o'clock game you're looking forward to?
Man.
Chicago at Detroit.
Yeah, no. I'm probably Seahawks Falcons. That's intriguing. I'm just because they're my team. I'm looking to see if the Seattle secondary is really that much improved as it should be. I want to see if they're going to let Russell cook.
Yeah. Let Russell Cook movement's going to continue on, huh?
I don't see it happening. I'm at the point where I'm pretty certain it's a Pete Carroll issue. I'm sure John Schneider would love to let Russell cook. I'm also intrigued to see if the Falcons are any better. I kind of doubt it, but we'll see. Also, there's the whole issue of Seattle being kind of terrible on the road to start the season in the last 10 years. They're like 2-7 or something. No, like 1-7, I think. Wait, 1-9. My bad. The one game being a 10-7 win over the Panthers in 2013. I would say, other than the Seahawks, I'm intrigued by the Packers and Vikings.
Yeah.
And also, I'm intrigued by Dolphins at Patriots. Because, not the Dolphins side, I'm interested in seeing what the hell they do with Cam Newton as the starting quarterback for the Patriots, and see how the heck does the greatest coach in football currently deal with a drama king like Cam Newton. Because that ain't going to be easy for him. Those are he's going from a professional quarterback like Tom Brady, who's just straight and narrow, get on the field, play the game, win, 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 to Cam Newton, who we all know how he rolls. He is drama, drama, drama all the time. So.
And loud.
Yes.
And then, Shane, let's talk about that Packers-Vikings game as well. Are you expecting this game to be more of a running game? Of course, early on in the season, we always see the Vikings do a lot more with the running game. Remember last year with Kirk Cousins only throwing the ball 10 times in that game to open the year. And the Packers are definitely trying to incorporate more of a running game as well, as they are trying to transition to Jordan Love, at least long-term. But in the short term, they have Aaron Rodgers. Do you expect this game to be a bit of a run fest, or do you see Aaron Rodgers and Kirk Cousins kind of throwing the ball around a little bit more?
I absolutely expect it to be just pounding the rock, running. Because, like you said, it's in that opening game, Kirk Cousins threw, 10 times. I think it'll probably be even less now that they don't have Stephon Diggs.
Yeah.
And then for Green Bay, it's kind of the same thing. They only have Adam Jones really as receiving. And
Devontae Adams, but yes.
Well, yeah. Or sorry, yeah. What did I say?
Adam Jones.
Oh. Anyways, where did that come from?
Aaron Jones is where that came from.
Aaron Jones, yeah, their running back. Because they Rodgers and LaFleur have made it clear that they are, because they got two backs now. They have Jones and then who's the other guy's name?
They picked up AJ Dillon in the draft as well.
Yeah, I think so.
And they have Jamal Williams as well. It's pretty stacked.
Yeah, they said that they're very impressed with their running back depth. So I think they're going to be more of a running team, which, I don't know why they wouldn't be when you got their current situation. So, but they might surprise us all like last night and end up throwing 50 times, who knows? So we'll see.
All three of these running of these 1:00 games are actually worth mentioning. The Chargers and the Bengals. Brandon, Joe Burrow expectations for Week 1.
I have no idea. I still kind of feel like his success at LSU is not going to carry over to the Bengals, considering at LSU he had arguably the best receiving core and the best line in the entirety of the college football.
And one of the best running backs.
Like he
And
was stacked. Like the whole team he had was stacked. He could have like just handed it off the whole time and probably would have won. I I don't know. People who think the Bengals are going to suddenly become like god tier are dumb. Like it's not going to work that way. Maybe they'll go to like 5 wins this year. I don't know. Probably out of all the late window games that I'm interested in, it would be the Bucks and Saints.
Mm-hmm.
Maybe the Cardinals and 49ers just to see what happens there.
Mm-hmm.
Let's red game.
Let's go to Bucks and Saints, and then I'll mention Cardinals, Niners. Shane, with the Bucks and the Saints, what are your expectations for Brady? Obviously, no preseason. We don't know how the running game is going to look for him, but what are your expectations for Tom Brady opening up with a very difficult matchup in New Orleans?
Yeah, I mean, luckily for him, the crowd won't have much of an impact.
The artificial crowd might.
Well, yeah, because I mean, it's not like because the Superdome is a tough place to play, but not this year. So, anyways, yeah, I mean, I'm not sure what to expect from Tampa right away because while they do have Brady, and that's obviously a big improvement over Jameis, it is, an older Brady, and he's noticeably been a bit worse in the last couple of years. Not that he's bad, but just, not like he used to be, obviously. And, I mean, he's always been kind of in September. I don't know if that'll continue. I mean, who knows how Gronk is going to be after a whole year off. It's just a lot of unknowns. I mean, I really don't know. I mean, I think we kind of know what New Orleans is going to be just because, not much has changed there except for the fact that they've picked up even more talent in the offseason. And so, yeah, I mean, I'll take New Orleans to win it, but I mean, we'll just have to see. I'm definitely excited to see Brady in a new uniform. It's going to be weird, but cool. So, yeah, I mean, I think it'll probably be a close game, but I mean, who knows? Tampa could come out and look really sloppy because they have so much new and so many players who are kind of like old and past their prime, so yeah, we'll see.
And then with the Saints side, Brandon, I'll go to you. Obviously, the last few years with New Orleans, as we continuously talked about, it's been a tough feeling in the playoffs to finish off every year for New Orleans. And time is running out for Peyton and Breeze. What can we look for in this game as we move forward throughout the season for New Orleans?
I think we're going to see a lot of Breeze targeting Michael Thomas as he usually does. Just like it's going to be a lot of targeting Michael Thomas, I think, because he's kind of he's just like safety blanket a little bit. You kind of know that Michael Thomas is going to catch the ball all the time.
Mm-hmm.
I think, as is usual in New Orleans, there probably won't be much of a run game. Well, maybe.
Alvin Kamara's gonna be fun.
He's still sort of a up in the air.
Mm-hmm.
So I don't know. Like the Saints, this is their last chance, I would argue.
Yeah.
I would not be shocked if after uh, Breeze retires, you see a lot of these pieces getting traded away for picks or other players.
Yeah. And then with the Cardinals and the Niners, I think this game no one's going to really look at, but it's going to be fantastic. As we all know, as veterans of this division, um, every one of these games is close. It doesn't matter. This division is so ridiculous that it doesn't matter if it's the Rams, it doesn't matter if it's the Cardinals, it doesn't matter if the Niners, it doesn't matter if it's the Seahawks. Whenever these four teams match up against one another, in different weeks, it's brutal. It's just a smash mouth. It's not even old school. It's new school football, but in like a smash mouth way. And the fact that these games are always really close. And this is such a perfect matchup for both of these teams because the Cardinals are a team I actually think really highly of going into this year. I think you have Kyler Murray's going to have an incredible year, especially with DeAndre Hopkins. I want to see how that connection works. What do we expect for Kenyon Drake? We're not really sure at this point. But the Niners, I feel like with the Niners that they're still an amazing team. It's just sort of that they feel like they're going under the radar because who knows about Jimmy Garoppolo. Let's see him take more steps forward this year. This game will be a good look into that. And their defensive line is still great, obviously bringing in Javon Kinlaw. This team as a whole is really impressive, but it's really simple. As everyone in Seattle says, let Russell cook. I say everyone in Santa Clara, San Francisco should say, let Garoppolo cook. I got to see Garoppolo throw the ball more, and this game is a perfect game, especially with a Cardinals defense that's kind of middle of the road, still kind of trying to figure themselves out, especially early on in the year. I want to see Garoppolo throw the ball a lot. And if he does, the Niners should win this game ultimately, regardless of their game plan. But I feel like if Garoppolo can actually throw the ball, they're going to be very successful, and they might find their way back in the Super Bowl, in all honesty. And then with the Cowboys and the Rams, opening up SoFi. Shane, expectations for the Rams. Obviously, our expectations are definitely a bit lower than the past few years, but let's start with the Rams moving into a new stadium now and opening up on Sunday Night Football.
Yeah, it's too bad that they have to open this with this stadium, in this scenario. But it is what it is. Yeah, I mean, the Rams have obviously been a dominant team last few years, and then last year I think the salary cap issues kind of came back to bite them, and they sort of took a downturn. Obviously, not that they were that bad last year, but they missed the playoffs, and I think this year their struggles will continue. Personally, I mean, I see them going 7-9. Maybe that's too critical, but that's just kind of where I stand. I mean, I think that it's going to take them a few years to kind of figure out their money situation and actually sort of rebuild their team and be competitive again. I mean, it's Goff looked good for a couple of years there, but I think when you take away, Sean McVay pumping the smarts into his head, and it just goes purely to Goff's playing ability. It's kind of just average. His arm is fine. It's nothing special in my opinion, but his sense of pressure, mobility, whatever, it's all just kind of average to me. I think what really gave him that edge is his camaraderie with Sean McVay and just how they were able to game plan together.
Mm-hmm.
But for the Cowboys, this is the one team that everybody is really high on, and I don't understand why. I mean, most people, like a lot of people that I see like online or whatever, think they're going to be a top 10 or even top 5 team. And I don't see that happening at all. I mean, they still have a lot of the same problems now that they had last year, except they lost a lot of their veteran players, specifically on the O line. So, logically that means that they're going to get better, according to most people. So, I mean, I think that they'll go like 8-8 again, just be kind of average.
Mm-hmm.
And that's how I feel like this Sunday night game is going to be, just kind of average.
Mm-hmm.
But yeah.
In your mind, Brandon, is average the right word to describe the Cowboys this season? Do you think they're going to be overhyped?
That's just how they always are, kind of just average, just there.
Mm-hmm.
And it's like, yeah, they're America's team. But honestly, and don't hate me, America, but like we're kind of just average right now. Like it's a good word. They're a good team to be called America's team because it's just meh. They're just average, just like America. We're just kind of average right now. So
okay,
kind of fits.
That's a very interesting transition for the Cowboys. I don't know how to react to that other than, yeah. I mean, look, with the Cowboys, I think, specifically looking at the Cowboys, it's kind of been like this all year. They just are pretty much like the last 5 years. Like it's overhyped to a fault. The Cowboys always get the best ratings in the NFL for good reason. Or I guess not for a very great reason, but they do. And the Cowboys are always the most interesting team because when they fall, people love it. When they're good, people love it or hate it. It's kind of what it is. But with the Cowboys, I mean, you're looking at that receiving core. How much is that going to help Dak? That's one of the best receiving cores in the NFL. Zeke is still Zeke, but again, as Shane mentioned, that O-line is rough, and then we're not really sure yet what to expect of the defense. It's pretty simple with the Cowboys. They got to be like they were 2 years ago, where the defense was top 5 in the league. Because if their defense is top 5 in the league this year, which I don't think is going to happen, but if they are, they're going to be quite competitive. I just don't see how that's going to happen, though. We'll go through the Monday games and the Monday slate on Sunday night during our post show. But let's go through our record predictions. I just finished mine a little while ago, so I'll post mine up first. And then, so here's my North: Ravens 14 and 2, Steelers 9-7, Browns 8-8, Bengals 4-12. In the South, I got the Titans winning, going 12-4, Texans 11-5, Colts 9-7, Jags 2-14. In the East, I got Bills 12-4, Jets 8-8, Patriots 7-9, Finns at 4-12. In the West, Chiefs go 14-2, Broncos 9-7, the Chargers go 7-9, the Raiders go 3-13. In the North, I got the Vikings going 12-4, the Packers going 10-6, the Lions going 8-8, and the Bears going 6-10. Saints win the South 13-3. Bucks follow behind them at 11-5. Falcons finish at a medium 8-8. Don't know what they are, right? It's that simple. They're just kind of where they are. And then the Panthers at 6-10. I have the Ravens winning the Super Bowl over the 49ers. So what are your guys' thoughts on my predictions here?
Wait, what about the
Oh, yeah, my bad. The West underneath it. My apologies. The East and the West. The East, I got the Eagles going 11-5. Cowboys finishing at 9-7. The Giants finishing at 4-12. The Washington football team finishing at 3-13. The Niners, of course, as I said, my NFC champs going 13-3. Seahawks at 11-5. I have high expectations for the Cardinals. I think they go 10-6. And to round it out, the Rams go 6-10. My apologies there.
So, do you really see the Seahawks falling like that? Like, losing an extra game than they did last year? Or
I don't.
did they go?
No, they went 11-5 last year.
Yeah. Do you see them staying the same? I don't. I think they're going to get better.
I mean, I wouldn't be surprised if they go 12-4. I just think with this division, it's like that's why the Rams are 6-10 because the division is just too rough.
And there's no way the Niners are going to be 13-3. There's just no way. I don't see it.
I mean, I could see them going. I could see both the Seahawks and the Niners going 11-5. I just think this division is really hard, and it's only gotten harder because I honestly think the Cardinals are going to take a huge step up.
Yeah.
Shane, any thoughts on this?
Yeah, the only place I really disagree with you would be Houston going 11-5.
Mm.
And then I also think that that the Dolphins, I think they'll win a couple more than 4,
Mm-hmm.
but still not anything amazing. And then I also somewhat disagree with you with the NFC West, but
Mm-hmm. The interesting part about the Titans and even the Colts going 9-7, the Texans going 11-5, is the schedules aren't even that bad for them, which I think partially pushes the Texans up to 11-5. The Colts, I think I had going like 6-1 in the first 7 weeks, just because their schedule is pretty simple. But that's kind of where I feel with the South in particular. But yeah, the Ravens and the Niners in the Super Bowl. I think the Ravens are the best team here. I think they're the most complete team. Now, you could make an argument, okay, what about Lamar? What about the Ravens in the playoffs? I think this is the year they can finally get over that hump. And if they do, man, they're going to be competitive for a while.
I don't know, man. I legitimately don't think Lamar has the ability to win a playoff game.
You have a hard time believing that?
The man was handed a playoff win on a silver platter last year.
The Titans were pretty good.
They were the 1 seed.
Yeah.
Like, you're at home. You're not supposed to lose as the 1 seed at home. And it's twice now where he's played trash in a playoff game. I'll say it again. I said it last year after the game. I'll say it again and again and again and again and again until he wins a playoff game. Don't come at me with this. Don't even. I'm not even gonna.
You're not even looking at the rest of the roster, which is really good.
Nope. I'm not even gonna consider it.
The roster got a little worse.
I thought it got a lot better.
Because here's the thing: to win a playoff game, you need a quarterback who's confident enough to do it.
Mm-hmm.
I still think it's a case of he has an amazing team behind him, and he's just not really that big of a leader right now.
Mm-hmm.
And honestly, I'm open-minded to see him become a leader. Like, I believe there'll be a point where he'll become a leader, and then it's like, watch out. Because once he becomes an actual leader and a confident player, like a really, really confident player, then I think he's going to just take off and be dominant. But we'll see.
Shane, you're next on the record predictions. What do you have?
Well, I'll just explain my my playoff predictions, and then a couple of teams that I think will just barely miss. Because honestly, who cares about the bad people? But in my opinion, I'll start with the AFC. I think the Chiefs will go 14-2 and get the first seed. I think the second seed will be the Ravens at 13-3. Third seed will be the Bills at 12-4. Fourth seed be Tennessee at 11-5. Fifth seed Indianapolis at 10-6. Sixth seed Pittsburgh at 10-6, or you could flip those. And then seventh seed, I think Denver just barely sneaks in there at 9-7. Now, I was a lot more confident in Denver, but in the last couple of days, I've sort of, taken that back because, they lost
Von Miller out for the year.
Yeah. Which is bad. But I think that the rest of the team will still be able to pull something together. While it won't be, in my opinion, as great as I thought it would be, it'll definitely be harder. But I look at the rest of the AFC, and I was like, well, what other team would be logical as a 7th seed? And honestly, I don't think anyone else will be better than them, because it's just kind of meh.
Mm-hmm.
And then over at the AFC, or sorry, the NFC, I have the Saints in the first seed at 13-3, the Seahawks in the second seed at 12-4, the Eagles in the 3 seed at 11-5. Now this one was tough for me, but I'm gonna say Green Bay with the 4 seed at 11-5.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, and then I'm gonna go Niners with the 5th seed 11-5, Tampa at the 6th seed with 10-6, and then Minnesota as the 7th seed, also at 10-6.
Mm-hmm.
Now I think Green Bay wins the NFC North because they went 13-3 last year, and the roster hasn't changed a ton since then. Although I think a lot of their wins last year were kind of luck, if I'm being honest. So I think they take a couple steps back. And then, with Minnesota, I mean, they still have that really good defense, obviously, but, I think losing Stephon Diggs is going to really hurt their pass game, which will hurt their chances down the road. So, because now they have, like, Thielen as their one guy, whereas in Green Bay, they have Devontae Adams as, their one guy. And I like Adams much more than Thielen. As good as Thielen is, but yeah, and I think that Arizona and I think they just miss like a 9-7,
Mm-hmm.
being like an 8 seed. I think they would get in, but I mean this conference is just stacked, so I think it's tough for them. I think if they were the AFC, they would probably get a wild card pretty easily. And then Atlanta, who knows what they're gonna be. I think even, the Rams and Cowboys, as like I said, kind of average as they are, I think they could even be competitive for a wild card. Not that they will get it necessarily, but yeah. And then early Super Bowl prediction. I don't know. I think Kansas City will win the East, the AFC. My mind's in basketball mode. I think they'll win the AFC,
Mm-hmm.
and then the NFC. I would say New Orleans, but knowing their playoff luck, I don't know. Maybe them, Seattle, San Francisco, maybe even Tampa. I don't know. We'll just have to see when the time comes.
Mm-hmm. And then with the
so we're forgetting something about this year, lads.
what?
There are 7 seeds.
Right. There are
Yeah.
7 seeds. Yes.
I said 7 seeds.
Oh, you did?
Yes.
Yeah.
There are 7 seeds.
So yeah, Kansas City, Baltimore, Buffalo, Tennessee, Indy, Pittsburgh, Denver.
Okay, so
Right.
let's talk about the Colts. Brandon and I talked about the Colts yesterday. Do you expect a regression from Phillip Rivers or not? Because it seems like based on your record predictions, you don't feel like he'll regress. I feel like he's already regressed from last year, and that's why the Chargers let him go.
Well, I mean, he certainly has. I just, I look at their schedule, because on paper I would expect the Colts to be like 8-8 just based off of their roster. But then I looked at their schedule, and it's really not that hard. And you got Jacksonville twice. Okay, that's a piece of cake. You got Houston twice. I'm sure they'll win at least one of those. Tennessee will be tricky, but division matchups tend to be close. So I mean, who knows what'll happen there? But then, outside of that, I mean, they're playing teams like the Jets, the Bengals, the Bears, Lions. I mean, those are pretty easy wins in my opinion for a team like Indianapolis. And then, they also are playing some tougher teams like Baltimore. That'll be tough, obviously. Minnesota, I think. Green Bay will probably give them some trouble. And even Pittsburgh, that'll probably be a close game. But I could see him winning it. No, Phillip Rivers is not great, but I do think he's a slight step up from Brissett. And, the defense, I think, will do well for them. Their O-line is really good. And then their running back situation. They have a lot of depth at running back. So, it'll be interesting to see what they do there. I think that's, quarterback and receiver a bit are just kind of their big weaknesses. That's like the thing that's really holding them back. But so that's why I'm kind of like at a, I think they'll be competitive, like 10-6, but they're not gonna be crazy or anything. So.
Yep. And then Brandon.
Luck.
Brandon, your record predictions for 2020.
I actually am gonna go. My record predictions is exactly the same as Shane's.
You guys always have similar record predictions all the time.
Because we're logical people.
We're intellectuals.
Yes. I would maybe possibly say Pittsburgh would be not as, I don't know. Pittsburgh is the one team that's like my unsure of pick, but I don't know for now, but I'm gonna see how they get later in the year.
Yeah.
Yeah, I'm with you there.
Yeah. All right, and that's it for today. I also want to make sure, since we are recording this on September 11th, to honor all of those who died in those horrific attacks, on September 11th, 2001. So this show is in honor of all of you on this really difficult day in those respects as well. And thank you, Shane. Thank you, Brandon. We will see you all Sunday night.
Yep.
All right. Yep. Absolutely. 100%.
Yep.
All right. We'll see you all on Sunday.